How's it going, everyone? It's Harvey from Weather Sponge 5000, and in this video, we're going to talk about this snowstorm that's currently impacting portions of the southeast and the Mississippi River Valley, and we're going to determine the impacts you should expect over the next few hours and days as this continues to head further northeastward into the northeast. And we're also, of course, going to talk about our next potential major northeast snowstorm that could bring significant snowfall even along the coastal cities of the northeast. But first, let's take a look at this current storm system, and we do have a relatively large area of snow showers right over the Mississippi River Valley. Memphis right now is under a heavier snow band. The Memphis area could expect anywhere between 5 to 8 inches of snowfall before this storm system is all said and done. And since Memphis is pretty much right on the line where the convergent boundary, where we're seeing warm air and the cooler air mass just to the north of it converge right around the rain snow line, we're seeing a heavier amount of snowfall right up along the Interstate 40 corridor. So if you're anywhere between Little Rock, Memphis, or anywhere that's pretty much very close to the Interstate 40 corridor, that's where you should expect the heavier snow bands. And I wouldn't be surprised that in certain areas of Tennessee and Arkansas, you could see some isolated areas of snowfall accumulation that's close to 10 inches. So you definitely need to be aware of that. But just north of the Interstate 40 corridor, we do see that there is pretty much a moderate amount of snowfall for much of northern Arkansas as well as northern Tennessee, going into southern Missouri as well and southern Kentucky. As those areas, you should expect right around 3 to 6 inches of snowfall, and this should last until tomorrow morning for a lot of these areas. So definitely keep that in mind. The snowfall is right around Nashville's doorstep, as within the next few hours, you should begin to see the moderate snowfall move in and potentially heavier snowfall a little bit later during the evening time. So definitely watch out for that in Nashville. And then just south of this area, we do have some ice accumulation going on right around northern Mississippi, which is definitely a major concern. You definitely don't want to mess with ice accumulation because it takes a lot less ice accumulation to cause major impacts on the roadways compared to a similar amount you would see with snowfall. So in northern Mississippi and even portions of northern Alabama, definitely be aware of that over the next few hours, but eventually we should see this precipitation change over into snowfall once the temperature does cool down right around the mid levels of the atmosphere to allow an all snow event to occur right around northern Mississippi and northern Alabama. When it comes to the forecast of this snowstorm over the next few hours, the certainty is very high at this point. The confidence is high between the two most reliable computer models, so we aren't going to see any significant changes with the forecast at this point. So if your forecast is to receive heavy snowfall anywhere around the southeast, the southern Ohio Valley, as well as the northeast, you need to prepare as if a snowstorm is going to impact you guys because confidence is very high at this point. But let's take a look at the Futurecast radar. We clearly see the European model is taking a moderate amount of snowfall, as the snowfall, like I said, won't be very heavy outside of the convergent boundary close to the rain snow line, but it should at least be heavy enough to where the total snowfall accumulation should be around 5 to 8 inches in many areas of Tennessee. But moving forward, we do see that eventually this storm system is expected to, or at least the area of snowfall is expected to dissipate a little bit before redeveloping right around the early Tuesday timeframe, right around the overnight hours. That's when we should see the snowfall approach western Tennessee, northern Alabama. That's where the snowfall should change, the ice accumulation should change over to snow. Same goes for northern Mississippi, where by the late time on Monday, that's where you should expect the heaviest of the snowfall in those areas. And then the snowfall will approach Tennessee right around the overnight hours on Tuesday. Moving forward into the morning time on Tuesday, that's when we should see the snowfall approach Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Philadelphia, and it's pretty much right at New York City's doorstep right around sunrise on Tuesday, and then it should last all day throughout of Tuesday for much of the northeast coast, including the Interstate 95 corridor cities, where we see that the snowfall lasts pretty much the entire day, and this storm system should strengthen as the day goes on. But it's going to strengthen a little bit later to a point where this won't necessarily be a significant snowstorm for places like New York City, New Jersey, Philadelphia, but you guys will still likely experience anywhere between 1 to 3 inches of snowfall, which still is something to be aware about if you're driving on the roadways. I don't expect it to be necessarily a major to bring major impacts when it comes to travel, but it's at least something to be aware of, because when we see slick road conditions, that of course does make driving a little bit more difficult, especially when the visibilities might be down with the heavy snowfall at times in these areas. So you definitely need to be aware of that for your Tuesday morning and evening commute for a lot of these areas in New York City and Philadelphia. And this should approach the New England area right around the late Tuesday timeframe, and then it should end right around Wednesday morning for pretty much the entirety of New England, as this storm system will accelerate as this continues ahead further northeastward, and pretty much by Wednesday morning it should all be gone from the northeast. So it's going to be a quick mover by the time it approaches New England, which is part of the reason why the snowfall accumulation is so light in the northeast. If we were to take a look at that, you're going to see that not much. You shouldn't expect much more than 1 to 3 inches of snowfall right up along the coastal northeast, but it's at least still something to be aware of. The heavier snowfall will be focused in a little bit more towards the southeast, where especially places like northern Mississippi and Alabama, you should expect 3 to 6 inches of snowfall, and potentially more than that in localized areas. So definitely be aware of that. This includes the higher elevations of North Carolina and Tennessee as well, and the extreme northern portions of Georgia, but it's going to be a closer forecast if you're right up along the rain snow line, so be aware of that. But for the northeast, it's pretty certain that even the bigger cities will experience 1 to 3 inches of snowfall from this storm system. But let's move on to our next potential major winter storm for the northeast. If we were to continue to move forward with forecasts, we see that eventually this trough will move out to sea, but we're just behind it. We're going to see a trough come off the Pacific Northwest coast that's going to bring a decent amount of cold air just behind it, and we're going to see ridging build right around the eastern half of the United States, or just over the western Atlantic, which could create enough of an unstable environment for a major winter storm to develop. We do see that even without the instability along the east coast, there's still a pretty large area of snowfall moving into the Midwest. It's not very heavy snowfall, it's very light, the snowfall, but in places like Nebraska, Iowa, and potentially northern Missouri, you should expect maybe around an inch of snowfall from this trough moving through the Midwest, but nothing really much more, since there is enough instability. But that's expected to change because we clearly see a ridge develops just to the east of this trough, and then by the Friday morning time frame, we should see a large area of snow showers throughout the Ohio River Valley, where you could expect 1 to 3 inches of snowfall in a scenario like this. And we see that the European model wants to strengthen this storm system quite a bit by the time this approaches the mid-Atlantic, to where we do see the light snowfall evolve into a more moderate snowfall rate by the time this approaches the mid-Atlantic, and we see the snow bands become even more heavy the further eastward it goes, and the further it encounters more instability that's induced by a strong southerly flow that's just to the east of this low. So by the Friday afternoon time frame, or right around noontime on Friday, we should see moderate snowfall right over northern Virginia, extending into Washington D.C., pretty much the entirety of Maryland, Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, all get involved with right around moderate snowfall, and then it should approach New Jersey right around the noontime on Friday, and same goes for New York City and Philadelphia at the same time period. And then by Friday night, that's where the heaviest of the snowfall could occur, where I wouldn't be surprised that we could see changes in the forecast that brings even more snowfall to the northeast. Right now, it seems like the European model is leaning towards maybe bringing around 3 to 5 inches of snowfall in the bigger cities like New York City, Philadelphia, and a large portion of Pennsylvania and southern New England. But this could easily be higher or maybe lower depending on how much instability we see with this storm system. Really all depends on how much ridging there's going to be just to the east of this storm system. But I'll certainly keep you guys updated, but this could be a very significant snowstorm for places like New York City, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Pennsylvania, and New York. And then by the Saturday overnight hours, we see that snowfall becomes even heavier for New Jersey, Philadelphia, New York City. Same goes for southern New England like Massachusetts, Boston, Rhode Island, Connecticut. All experience moderate to heavy snowfall with a storm system that's this powerful. This is based on the latest run of the European model. And then by the Saturday morning time frame, we should still see a pretty large area of snow showers dominate the Northeast before, I'll say, right around the Saturday afternoon time frame. That's when we should see the snowfall move out of the Northeast, but it's certainly something to keep in mind. For the Midwest, like Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, I find it less likely you're going to experience a major snowstorm out of this because the instability won't potentially occur until a little bit later once the storm system is far to the east of the Great Lakes region, which means that the heaviest snowfall will focus in more on the Northeast rather than the Great Lakes. But I still will confidently say that this area of the Midwest, which includes Iowa, Illinois, and Indiana, should expect maybe 1 inch of snowfall from this storm system. But for the Northeast, it could potentially be more significant depending on how much instability there is. The GFS model is less confident that this instability will build as early, which means that the Northeast doesn't experience as much snowfall, but it still expects the storm system to take a similar track to what the European model is stating, which makes me believe that this forecast is at least somewhere around the ballpark. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how this unfolds over the next several days. We're still around 5 days out. There's still changes that could be made with the forecast. But even in the GFS model scenario, which is a little bit less confident in this being of this storm system strengthening as rapidly, we still see some areas where the snowfall is heavier, like the Delmar Peninsula, portions of New Jersey, and portions of southeastern New England. But in this scenario, Boston receives a lot less snowfall since the snowfall is a little bit too far to the southeast of you guys. But places like New Jersey, Philadelphia, New York City experience less snowfall, but not necessarily as big of a gap as, let's say, Boston would experience. So we're definitely going to pay close attention to this over the next few days. I'll make sure to keep you guys updated. But what I could say is that we likely will see some sort of storm system that will bring snowfall to the Midwest and the Northeast. Just really depends on how powerful this storm system will be by the time it approaches the Northeast. And I'll certainly keep you guys updated. But that's it for now, guys, and I thank you guys for watching.